Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel Query Solution. So today we are taking the 9th session on the chapter Life Process today, and the topic that we are going to understand is the concept of transportation, but not the circulatory system, but today we are going to understand the lymphatic system. And these are the subtopics, as you can see, that we are going to discuss in the video today. We are first of all going to understand what is this lymph all about, what are the various components of the lymph, what is the component of the lymphatic system, how does this lymphatic system works in our body, and lastly we are going to see that is there any relationship between the circulatory system and the lymphatic system. So do watch out the video completely to have knowledge on all these subtopics. So let's start with our video. So we do know by now that when we talk about transportation, we are talking about transportation of two main fluids that flow in our body. One important fluid is something we already know, that is blood. And when we talk about blood, we talk about which life process or which organ system in our body. So we talk about the circulatory system, right? And we have already discussed everything in detail regarding the circulatory system. But as discussed previously, there is another fluid which flows in our body apart from blood, and that fluid is something which is known as the lymph. And when we talk about the movement or the transportation of lymph in our body, we talk about the organ system which is known as the lymphatic system. So it is very important first of all for us to understand that what is this lymph all about? What is this lymph mainly? Many of you know what is blood. Now we already know what are the different components of the blood, right? But do we know what is a lymph actually made up of, or what does it comprises of? So let us understand that clearly. If I ask you that what are the different components of blood, so many of you can relate and answer that blood is comprising of components like blood cells, which includes our RBCs, which includes our WBCs, which includes the platelets, right? Which includes the plasma. So these are the major important components of the blood. But is that all? Is there something else to the blood is carrying in our body? So the answer is yes. Apart from the cells and the plasma, the blood is also carrying the nutrients. Yes, the blood is also carrying the waste. The blood is also carrying different germs, because at the end, your body is exposed to lots and lots of antigens, lots and lots of surrounding medium, and many surrounding mediums does not harm our body, but the mediums like germs, the medium like the cell that produces on its own, which is known as the cell debris or the waste of the cells mainly, these all are also part of your blood. So just imagine, what is your heart doing at the end of the day? The heart is pumping the blood, right? It is transporting the blood and pumping this blood. Blood is not just having the good material, but it is also having the bad materials also. So do you think that it is important for your body to remove these waste materials, these negative materials also out of your body? Correct, right? We do know that it is important, because if such a blood will keep flowing in our body, there will come once a time in our body that our body will struggle due to many diseases. So it's very important that the blood should remove these negative materials also out of our body. So to understand now what is a lymph, we can understand lymph is nothing but it is actually a derivative of the blood itself. So let me write down here, what is a lymph? Lymph is nothing but it is a derivative of blood. So whatever components are there in your blood, some of the component is what is making the lymph actually. So what components actually your lymph is making? Let us understand that. So in your lymphatic system or in your lymph, what are the derivatives or what are the components of the blood that comes here? So the components like WBC, the components like water, even water is found in your own blood also. So water is present, various proteins are also present. So some components of the blood which are there, they are actually coming down to the system which is known as the lymphatic system. So what all components are coming? WBC is coming. Water is coming, the protein molecules are coming, and apart from these important material, the materials like waste, the materials like cell debris, and the materials like germs, these are also the part that gets derived from the blood, and in a way it is making another fluid in your body which is known as the lymph. So just to give you a quick summary again, because I know many of the children do not understand what is lymph. So lymph is nothing but lymph is just a derivative of the blood. The components of the blood that here we have seen are, and few components out of them makes up the lymphatic system, makes up your lymph actually, which, and why is it making at the end of the day? So that your blood can become clean. In this condition, your blood has got lots and lots of substances that can cause harm to it, right? So as you can see here, in your lymph, these are your important major component. Does it have any pigment that it can give color? In blood, we know there is a respiratory pigment, right? Hemoglobin, and due to that the blood is red in color. But do we see any presence of RBC or any other such component here? So the answer is no. There is no such component which is going to give any color to the lymph. And that is the very same reason, children, we say lymph as a pale yellow flowing medium. It has no color. It is just pale, a little yellowish kind of a structure. So can you now tell me that which part of your lymph and which part of your blood do you think, or which component of the blood and which component of the lymph actually matches with each other being pale and yellow in color? So I think many of you can guess now, the lymph is very much similar like that of plasma, right? We understood in our last video what is plasma. Plasma is also a pale yellow fluid that flows in our body, which is part of the blood. But here, since your lymph is also pale, it is also yellow in color, and it has got components which are similar to that of plasma, we can say that lymph is a type of material which is very much similar to plasma also. Okay, now, so this was the very first part which we need to know, that what is actually the similarity between plasma and lymph, and most importantly, what is this lymph all about? So lymph is nothing but it is just a derivative of a blood which contain the negative materials that you can see here, the harmful materials that you can see here, which the body will try to neutralize, which the body will try to kill, so that your blood becomes purified again. Okay, fine. Now in the next section, let us see what is your circulatory system comprising of. So let us understand the different components of circulatory system and what are the components of lymphatic system. So since we have already understood circulatory system by now, when we talk about the components of circulatory system, we know that first of all it is going to have a flowing material or a fluid. So we know by now the fluid which is there in the circulatory system is blood, and the fluid which is there in the lymphatic system is lymph, and we have already understood what is lymph and what is blood by now. Okay, when we talk about again the circulatory system, we talk about the major circulatory organ, and we know that in the case of circulatory system, the major important organ is the heart. So do you feel that there are specialized organ in the case of lymphatic system also? So answer is yes. There are various organs in your body which are actually the part of your lymphatic system. So let me tell you what all they are there, and I hope many of you can relate to these keywords or these organs because you might have heard about them. Have you people heard about spleen? Have you people heard about thymus, or have you people heard about the lymph nodes which are there? These are all the different organs in your body which are making up this system which is known as the lymphatic system. So these are the different organs of our lymphatic system. And then another important thing, we have got vessels, right? We have got tube-like structure through which this medium is flowing, because we understood in circulation, right? Since blood has to flow, it has to have a passage. It's a liquid at the end of the day. It just can't free flow in our body, right? So it has got a tubular structure through which it is going to pass. Such tubular structures are also found in the lymphatic system. So what is the name of the vessel that we see in the case of blood? So we say those vessels as the blood vessels, right? And here we have talked about different types of blood vessels. We talked about pulmonary vein, pulmonary artery, aortas, arteries, veins, right? We have spoken about all these in details. But what are the vessels of the lymphatic system known as? So these vessels are known as lymph vessels. Alright. So just a quick glimpse, what is a lymph vessel? A tube through which the lymph flow is something which is known as a lymph vessel. Correct? And very important, children, in the case of circulatory system, we have seen that there are capillaries, right? The arteries divide and form a one cell thick structure which is capillary, and then it joins back again to form vein, and that is those capillaries are known as your blood capillaries. Correct? I'm going to explain you blood capillaries right now, but just understand, in the case of circulatory system, we are going to see the capillaries also. Similarly, in the case of lymphatic system also, we have got lymph capillary. So there is just one basic difference between the both of them, which I'm going to explain you just in a while, but these are all the important components of your circulatory as well as your lymphatic system. So again, just to summarize, the circulatory system has got a fluid, the lymphatic system also has got a fluid. The circulatory system has got its own specialized organs. The lymphatic system also has its own specialized organs. The circulatory system has got its own blood vessels, and separate vessels are there for the lymphatic system also. These vessels will only allow the transportation of blood, and these vessels will only allow the transportation of lymph. There is no mixing that is happening in your body. They know their job, they know where they have to go, they know where they have to come from. So there is no mixing that's happening. They have their own special tube-like structure. And most importantly, both of them possess a structure which is known as capillary. The circulatory system have got something that's known as blood capillary, and lymphatic system has something which is known as the lymph capillary. So now, before moving towards how does the lymphatic system work, it is very important for us to understand what is this capillary all about. So let me draw a diagram and show it to you people. Alright, so this is just a rough sketch that I have drawn to explain you what are capillaries in our body. So as I said you, capillaries are there in both of our systems. They are there in the circulatory systems also as blood capillaries, and they are there in the lymphatic system also as lymph capillaries. So first of all, let us understand what is this capillaries all about. So we know that when we are talking about our circulatory system, we have got blood vessels like arteries, and we have got blood vessels like veins, and we have already discussed their differences between them, right? I have uploaded short, you can check out there. I'm not talking about it right now. So arteries are something that are going to bring in the blood, and they have oxygenated blood. That's the reason I have drawn them as with red color. The veins carry the deoxygenated blood, and that's the reason I have drawn them with blue color. So red color is resembling oxygenated blood, blue color is resembling the deoxygenated blood. Apart from arteries and veins, as you can see, there are two more keywords that I have written over here, which are arterioles and the venules. So what are these two? And then what is capillary at the end of the day? So let's understand that. Artery is your single tubular structure. Vein is also your single tubular structure. But these arteries, when they go to the cells of your body, now imagine vessel is something which is there. You might have seen a diagram where you could see many tube-like structures going in your body, right? But imagine how deeply your cells are placed. Can we see cells just like that? We just can't see cells. We can see organs, right? We can see the organ systems, right? We can talk about tissues, but it is not very easy to talk about cells, right? Because they are deeply placed, they are the structural unit, and there are millions in numbers in our body. But even apart from being the smallest structure, they require materials, they require nutrients, they require oxygen, they require important substances to survive. Because when your cells are surviving, then only your body is surviving. So that's how important your cells are, and that's how it is important that material comes to your cell. So when the arteries are bringing in the blood with all the important components, with all even the harmful component that it has inside it, these arteries first of all divides into many parts. So just imagine it was a single tube like this, and it got divided into many smaller tubes. So the division of arteries, so that it can divide into many parts. So this common division before it starts dividing to many parts is something which is known as an arteriole. So again, arteries are single structure. When these arteries starts dividing into many parts, their common junction is something which is known as an arteriole. So simple way to say, arteries are going to divide many times. As you can see, this single artery is going to divide many times, right? And as you can see here, once they divide so extensively, children, that these divisions become just one cell thick. Now imagine, as I was saying, cells are just the smallest building block. How small a cell would be. And these division of arteries through the arterioles into many division also become just one cell thick. And that junction where the arteries and arterioles are dividing and they become one cell thick structure, this common passage here between the red and the blue area is something which is known as your capillary. And here exactly the exchange occur in between your arteries and in between your cells. The cells will pick up the oxygen because now the capillaries are having a similar nature like cells. Cells were small, even capillaries are very small minute units, right? So here the exchange will happen. The cells will take in the oxygen, will use for the process of respiration and will give out carbon dioxide. And we know that who are going to carry this carbon dioxide? So the veins. But that's not easy. It's not going to go directly. Now, these divisions of arteries that have happened, the many divergent divisions that have happened, these are going to become convergent again. So here the division divided and here now the division is going to get converged. So this conversion, when it happens of the deoxygenated blood now, because cells have used the oxygen and now there is more CO2. So this deoxygenated blood now is going to flow through the convergent pathway again, going to come through a common tube which is known as venule, which finally leads into another tube-like structure which is known as vein. So this is an in-depth information, children, that how actually the exchange occur in between the cells and the arteries and the veins. It is because of the extensive division, single unit divided into many, formed a one cell thick structure, and that division again converged and formed another tube-like structure, single tube-like structure which is known as the vein. So this is the entire concept about capillary, and the junction between the divisions of your artery and the division of your vein is something which is known as your capillary. Same concept applies when you talk about blood capillaries, and same concept applies when you talk about your lymph capillary, but there is just one minute difference. So when I talk about blood capillary, we do know we are going to talk about arteries and veins, right? And it will be a one cell thick structure. But when I'm talking about our lymph capillary, the lymph capillaries don't have arteries and veins, but they have what type of vessels? So they have got their lymphatic vessels, right? And through the lymphatic vessels, again through such divisions, they are going to form again the same one cell thick structure that is going to be known as their capillaries, okay? Another important difference, children, that you should know, when you talk about blood capillaries as a unit, these blood capillaries allow two-way flow. Now, what do I mean by two-way flow? If this is your capillary, the oxygen has been brought into the cell, right? The cell has utilized this oxygen. After utilizing it, it got more concentration of CO2 inside it, and this CO2 will again move out. So there is one entry and there is one exit also. And that is the reason we say that blood capillaries have got a two-way movement, right? Because here movement of coming in and going out, both is happening. But another important difference between a lymph capillary is that here there is only one-way movement. There is no bidirectional movement that can happen. Materials can't go back, but materials can only go in. So this is a very important difference between a blood and a lymph capillary. The action remains same. Capillaries become one cell thick and help in exchange, that remains same. There is no change. But in blood capillary, there is even inflow and then there is outflow of the materials. But in case of lymph capillary, there is only input of the material. The materials, once they get into capillaries, cannot go out. Once they are in the capillary, they will only travel through the lymph vessels only. There is no exit of material through the capillary that can happen. So now let us understand how does the lymphatic system function. So this is a very simple diagram to understand what is the working of lymphatic system is all about. So when we talk about the working of the lymphatic system, We first of all have to understand that it is related with the circulatory system, and how is what we are going to understand here. As I have explained you just in a while before, that lymph is nothing but it is a derivative of the blood. So we have to understand one thing very clear, that when the blood is flowing through its own blood vessel, and when it flows from the left ventricle through the aorta, through the different tubes and the arteries, we have known by now that the arteries are actually going to divide extensively, and they are going to form a structure which is known as the blood capillaries. And these blood capillaries are again going to merge the structures and going to form the veins and the vena cava. This is how the flow through the heart goes through, which we know by now. Now, just important thing here, or the change which is here, is when the blood capillaries are getting formed, these blood capillaries are in close contact with the lymph capillaries also. Or in the reverse direction, we can say the lymph capillaries which are there, they are in close contact with the blood capillaries. So what is happening? When through the heart and through your aorta, the blood is passing down through various arteries, coming to extensive divisions, becoming one cell thick structure which is the capillary area where the exchange between cells is taking place. The lymph capillary, also being closely associated in this particular passage, allows some molecules or some components of the blood to move out of the blood capillaries and enter in the lymph capillary. So what all component comes out through the blood capillary which is entering in the lymph capillaries? So the components that you can see here, the components that we discussed just previously. What all components? The water from the blood will come out. The germ cells which are there will come out. The proteins which were there will come out. And very, very important component and cells, the WBCs from the blood will come out. And now it will form another set of liquid which is known as lymph. Now what will happen? This lymph has entered in the lymph capillary, and as I said you, this is just one way flow. Now the lymph can't come back again. The lymph will only flow in one direction, and this tube that you are seeing over here is something which is known as your lymph vessel. These are your blood vessels and these are your lymph vessels. So the lymph capillaries will now send this lymph into this tube-like structure which is the lymph vessel. And very important, children, the lymph vessels have got lymph node. So if this is your entire body, in your body, in many areas like in your neck area, in the armpit area, very much close to your pelvic area also, there are round structures which are present, and these rounded structures are known as lymph node. What is the importance of lymph node in the end of the day? So lymph node have got a good concentration of white blood cells. And we know why are white blood cells important? These white blood cells are like army in your body. We have got armies, right? We have got army people in our country who protect our country from anyone who can attack and harm our country. That's the same job your WBC is doing in your own body. The WBC which is there is acting like an army, waiting for any pathogen or any germ or any sort of material that can harm your body. Anyway, the lymph is bringing such materials which can harm your body, right? It is bringing the germ cells, it is bringing the waste, and your body has to clean it. And this job is done by the lymph nodes which are there at the WBC level, or this job is also done by the lymphatic system which is there. So as through the lymph capillaries and through the lymph vessel, as your lymph keep flowing throughout your body, they encounter areas which are known as lymph nodes, the areas where the army of WBC is waiting for the germ to come. As soon as they get the germ, they are going to kill the germs, they are going to neutralize the germs which are there, and the liquid which was flowing now, since it was having harmful material, all gets cleaned up, and the clean fluid goes back again through your vena cava and goes through your heart for pumping again. So in the last section, as I said you, is there any relationship between the circulatory system and your lymphatic system? So now I hope you can understand what is the relationship between both of them. What is the relationship at the end of the day? Your circulatory system made blood. The lymph was nothing but a derivative of blood, right? Why lymphatic system is there into existence? Because whatever harmful materials which are flowing through the blood, the lymphatic system is actually trying to clean those harmful material. The lymphatic system is trying to neutralize all the germs and all the pathogens which are there in the harmful material which is flowing in your body. Once it cleans, once the harmful materials are dead, once the harmful materials are neutralized, the lymph which was there flows back through your heart and become the blood again. So this is your lymph and this is your blood. The circulatory system of your blood actually made up into lymph by making some components to enter in the lymphatic system. Lymphatic system cleaned it, made lymph actually, which is now clean. As it got cleaned through the lymphatic system, it will flow back through your vena cava back to your heart so that the heart can keep pumping the blood. And this cycle keeps on happening back and back. And that is the very important reason whenever we talk about transportation, we talk about both the important systems there in our body, one being circulatory and another being lymphatic. Last thing, many children would think, why am I teaching you lymphatic system? It's not there in NCERT. So let me tell you, there is a context available about lymphatic system in NCERT, and that's the very same reason you need to understand what is this lymphatic system is all about. So I hope I have made you clear. If you're liking my video, give a thumbs up, share it with your friends. It will motivate me to make more videos for you. And until then, happy learning, guys.